How we doing, folks? It's a Sunday afternoon. I'm going to be doing a tank rebuild on what I called my 10-gallon graveyard tank. I've got a video up online on my build on that, which ended up being a disaster, and how I cleaned this tank as well. Hopefully this video will help people that are newer to the hobby. I'm still fairly new in the hobby, especially with planted tanks. So hopefully this will help some people. I want to do this build, and I want to show you what I learned. The first time around I made some mistakes. I probably got too cute. I built a little plastic barrier. I wanted a sandy beach in the front. I wanted plants in the back. The problem was I used the wrong substrate for the type of plants that I had. They were very thin-stemmed root plants. They wouldn't stay in the substrate. They kept popping up. I didn't put any kind of a fluorite sand cap on it. So I had plants all over the filter, and I used the wrong plants for the water that I have. I've got harder alkaline water, and I used a lot of plants that like soft water. They all ended up melting and rotting away. The tank was a disaster. So based on the success, I still want to make this a low-tech tank. And the success that I had on my 2.6 gallon fluval spec in using pool filter sand and first layer laterite along with root tabs or Osmocote Plus, the plant growth has been great. I'm going to try to, and I know it's not a substrate, and I can have better substrates, but I want to make this low tech, and I've also got a ton of pool filter sand lying around, and I do want to use the bag up. So got some great plants from Dustin's fish tanks, real green, great root systems. So we're going to do a rebuild on this tank. I'm going to take you through it step by step and note a lot of the mistakes that I made along the way. So hopefully this will help a few people out there who are newer into the hobby, especially people making a transition from traditional gravel tanks over to planted tanks. So the first thing we're going to do, folks, we're going to mix the first layer laterite. Laterite is a clay, good for aquarium plants. We're going to mix that in with the pool filter sand substrate, but we're going to clean this laterite first, and I'll show you how I like to do that. Now what I like to do with the laterite, folks, just to clean it, it just needs a rinse. It is a little bit dusty. I use a funnel to funnel it into a water bottle. This is an 8-ounce funnel. So on the instructions it's saying use an ounce per gallon, 10-gallon tank. This is about 8 ounces. It's all I had left. I filled it up, and I just let it fall into the funnel, into a water bottle that I filled with water. You can shake that up easily and rinse it. So first step is just to rinse the laterite. Now we're going to mix this in as a first layer with the pool filter sand on the bottom of the tank. Now what I'm going to do to fill this up is out of my little bucket of pool filter sand, pre-washed, washed it 4 or 5 times out in the backyard. It's not too dusty, but you do want to wash it several times. And what I like to do is, and this is why I like the water bottle for the laterite, is it's easy to just take the pool filter sand, just use a measuring cup to scoop it in, but then with the laterite, that can be sprinkled around the tank. And again, this is just going to be on the first layer here. So the water bottle works well. And I'm going to sprinkle that around as evenly as I can, and then mix everything together. It's got to form just an easy first layer. It's going to go under the rest of the substrate. Again, this is a clay. Really good for aquatic plants, and you'll see it on other videos where people use clay. The roots like to find it. Good for the plants. So I'm going to smooth this around and show you what it looks like. Very similar to the same build I did on the 2.6 gallon fluval spec. And again, that plant growth was great, so I'm going to try this again one more time. Now here's what I did. I mixed out the laterite with the sand as much as I could so that it was as even as possible. And here's what you get. Here's what the first layer looks like. So you've got the laterite and the clay down there. It's a small first layer. It's maybe about a 1/2 inch there. And then what I did is just used a straight edge to smooth things out. I want to try to get it as even as I can here. I did the same thing in my small tank. So we get it all nice and smoothed out, and this is just going to go on the bottom with other sand up on top of it. One other mistake that I made on the first tank that I did not do is while my plants are sitting here, make sure to spritz them, folks. Just get some water and spray them down. Keep them nice and wet. Make sure that they don't dry out on you. So as I'm doing this, I do want the plants laid out for my scape, but I'm going to make sure that those are spritzed. I didn't do that first time around, and always a good practice. So that's the first layer. Next, I'm going to put on more sand. I'm going for about a 2-inch bed is what I'm going for. Some of these crypts, most of those plants are crypts. They have some really nice root systems. Thank you, Dustin's Fish Tanks. But I'm going to put on another layer of sand, get that going, smooth that out, and go from there. Alright, substrate is in, and I've got about 2 inches or so, give or take, of that sand down. So we've got, and you can even probably see it, the laterite there on the bottom. And I've got it capped with more of the pool filter sand, evened out. I want to give these plants enough sand to root in, and I'm going to start planting it. The other mistake I made on the previous tank is what I did not do is soak my driftwood. Also from Dustin's Fish Tanks, I've got some really cool pieces of manzanita driftwood. I've got to soak these a little bit first. When I get it in the sand, I want to make sure that these bury in the sand, but that they sink in the sand. I didn't do that the first time around, and I had to tie these rocks to the driftwood to get it to stay down. So soaking the driftwood, boiling it, will help get rid of some of the tannins in the driftwood, and it'll help it sink. There are different driftwoods out there, some that do not. I know Amano has one. Sorry about that, folks. I know Amano has one that doesn't require really any rinsing. It just sinks automatically. But I'm going to just soak that driftwood. That's going to be part of my scape. What my concern is here is to get all these nice looking plants into the tank right now, get the tank filled up. I have an idea of what I'm going to do for the hardscape here. But got the sand in. I'm going to start planting right now and getting this going. And I've got the plants rooted in. I tried to keep it by species on each side. I know where I'm going to place my driftwood and where I'm going to place my rocks. But that's my start. What I was most concerned with on this tank, even though I really wasn't ready to do the build yet, is the plants came in the mail. They looked so good, and I wanted to make sure that I got them in the substrate, got them going, got the tank filled up so that I didn't lose my plants. So that was kind of my first project, is to get the plants in, rooted, and I'm going to fill this up just a little bit, get the plants to stand up, and just see where everything lies, and go from there. And I'm going to start filling this up. I'm using the same measuring cup that I use to scoop in my sand. I don't want to disturb the substrate. So I'm going to pour this in nice and slow. The one thing I learned, the last tank I rushed it so fast and had so many issues with it. You can use a plate here too. Whatever you want to use, as long as it's not disturbing the substrate too much, so that you can fill it up. I rushed the last setup. Went too fast. Mother Nature rewards patience, so I'm going to watch this tank a little more carefully. I'm going to watch my setup more carefully. I'm not an experienced planted tank hobbyist, so I want to see the plants come up and see where I'm at. And I did have a lot of success, though, with that frugal spec and the plant growth there. So I'm going to keep filling this up, go about a quarter of the way up, see where my plants are, and then go from there. I am expecting a little bit of crypt melt. I know when you mess with the roots of crypts, I have had some crypts in the past. They do tend to melt away a little bit if you do that, but they have always come back. So I'm hoping that these do as well. I'm going to start filling this guy up. Alright, I've got my plants pretty much rooted where I want them. What I'm going to do, along with the laterite, for extra fertilization of the substrate, since I'm just going with the pool filter sand, I'm going to use API root tabs. When you pop them out, they're just little tablets here. I've got a few left. In this package, I have another package that's lying around. So again, this is kind of a low budget, low tech tank I'm doing. And because I already have them, here's what they look like. Just a little tablet. Now, I've heard it said, and it is true, with the API tabs, when you put them in the water, they do dissolve pretty quickly. And Seachem has another version. They have tabs as well. From what I hear, although I've never used them, I'm going to order them to try them. The Seachem tabs don't dissolve quite as fast. So, but I've had success with the API tabs before, so I'm going to use them again. And all we're going to do here in the tank is I'm going to just take this with my hand and I'm just going to press it down about midway into the substrate and cover it up, and that's it. On the back of the instructions, it says 1 tab for every 30 square inches in your tank. And in the 10 gallon, it also says, as an example, it would be about 6 root tabs. So I'm going to grab my other package and put about 6 strategically in the tank. One thing with the root tabs, you don't want to put them right next to the plant. You want that fertilization to spread. So for this particular tab, I put it here right in the middle. it'll probably grab these two crypts here. I'm going to probably put one down in this clump of crypts, one over here where the Kabamba is and where these other crypts are, and maybe just a couple on the edges. So I'm going to get those in and keep moving. And here's where I'm going to stop tonight. So I've got all my plants rooted in. I've got my root tabs in. You know, it's not looking great right now. I need the plants to start coming back. One thing I didn't mention was I was out of town for a few days. My order came. The plants still look great. But I had to let them sit in a bag for a few more days than I wanted. So I'm sure they will be coming back. That's why I wanted to kind of do this experiment for you guys. What I did with the Kabamba in the back, I did trim it up a little bit and made sure I trimmed some of the cuttings. I wanted it with a kind of a bushier look. So I've got 3 stems that are there in the back. Those should grow nicely, and I've got my crypts around the tank. As soon as they start rooting, they should start coming up more toward the light. This is an LED fixture, and I know it's not the most optimal lighting in some cases, but for crypts that are more low light plants, and for the Kabamba, that's more of a low light plant, it'll work. It was super dirty before. I got it all cleaned up. Used some distilled white vinegar. Got all the hard water deposits off of it. What I like about it though is it's got a cool setting on it where I can do, you know, a nightlight on it if I wanted to, which I thought was pretty cool. So that's what I'm going to stop with tonight, and I'm going to kind of monitor this tank until it goes to the location it'll end up in and watch the plant growth. I've got a thermometer installed. Tomorrow I'm going to put my heater in. I'm curious about my room temperature, so I'll see what that is, but that's what we got going. So I'm going to keep monitoring this, and I'm going to come back at you in a couple days.